Hello friends and welcome. Today we're going to talk about who I think are some of the better and worse supports of the most recent patch, 7.32D. It is still pretty new, about a week or two into this patch, so this is not like a definitive tier list or anything, just kind of what has been working for me, not working, what I've seen in a lot of pubs, things like that. Before we get into it, let us kind of recap what I think is good in the support role right now, like conceptually. I actually made a video on this recently, and then, the patch came out, but I don't think it actually changed that much. So I still think being a strong laner is really good. The banner creeps got 10 more gold shared amongst the lane, right? So 20 gold every time you can secure that, 20 extra gold for your team compared to the last patch. So I think staying in the lane more is still really good. Up to about like level 2 or 3, I think it's very helpful to be in the lane more than you used to. If you have to do a pull, go ahead. But I think getting those first early levels helps a lot, because right now there's a lot of like fighting for bounty runes, power runes, just like even going to do the pulls, right? If the enemy support is higher level than you, it's really hard to do that stuff. So I think it helps a lot to get those first couple of early levels, help try to impact the lane, start to win it by that point. Maybe get a kill or two with that level 2 or 3 power spike. I've been doing that with Treant. And then you're a bit more free to go do pulls, to go bounty rune, power rune. And if you can test someone, hey, I'm level 3, like I can actually fight. If you show up as level 1, level 2, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm just going to kill you. That's cool, right? And then you're just feeding. So it doesn't feel very good to me. So staying in the lane a lot more has been helpful, and doing hard camp pulls and then fighting over those has helped a lot. So I think a lot of strong, hard supports are really good right now. After that, I still think we're kind of in this early group up meta. Auras still feel fairly good to me, even though Wraith Pact is kind of a big nerf, so not nearly as much Wraith Pact, and if no one's building one, you don't have to build one anymore. So there are still games where I think Wraith Pact is pretty good, but not nearly as much. It's more specific item than where it used to be. So as a support, you probably don't have to think about Wraith Pact too much, but keep it in the back of the mind if it looks like, wow, this is like all physical damage, right? And it's still a pretty good item. And then, yeah, actually, that's kind of it for supports. Let's leave it at that for now. So with that in mind, let's talk about hard supports that I think are good. So Treant Protector, I think, is one of the better supports. I guess last thing, disclaimer I always say, Pro Dota, pretty different from Pub Dota. So some heroes are going to work a lot more in our average pubs than like you'll see being picked up in like professional series, right? So Treant's one of those. Even with the recent buff, I'm not seeing him that much. He's not like, Marcy from last patch being picked every single game or banned every game. But I think he's really good in pubs. I've been doing really well with him. I've won almost every lane I've played. His high base damage means that you just have really good trading. You can secure creeps with right clicks, but you can also go for a lot of deny. So that's something I talked about in that last video I was talking about, where I think denying is very good for you right now, and Treant has the highest base damage you can start with. So pretty easy to get denies if you just, his attack is a little slow. So sit in the lobby, practice that a bit if you don't play him, and then it's pretty easy because you have such high damage. So that's good. Then his Leech Seed buff makes it easier to take good trades. It heals you and does damage to the enemy while slowing them down. So level 2, you get QW, and that's pretty good. Level 3, I've been doing 2 points in Leech Seed, and it's really powerful in many matchups. Now, if they have huge bursts where they like 100 to 0 you, which I was experiencing in a Techie's lane the other day, or like Marcy Lion where they have a lot of stuns, right? That is harder. But most lanes are not that extreme, and there's a lot more chase and fighting, and that's where Leech Seed has a ton of value by level 1, level 2, because it is just constantly healing you in these fights and kind of tricks the enemy. They think they can kill you guys, and then you're constantly being healed through all this while you're doing like tons of right click. So I think that's why he's such a good pub hero, is because many people underestimate him. They don't know how to play around him, which is, avoid the trees, cut those trees if you can. And so like you can get off a lot of free high damage harass, and then finally commit with a ton of slows and get kills. And then as you go into like the game outside the laning stage, Leech Seed's still really good. I've been maxing it. And then you provide armor. You can buy really whatever. You have a very flexible item build, so whatever you think is good. Shard has been really popular, I know, but I've been doing a lot of like Arcane, Blink still. Any kind of auras I think the team wants, all still really good. So That's kind of it. The ult, pierces BKB. That's still pretty nice. There's still a decent amount of like early BKB purchases in my games on higher level where it's just a very good fighting item. In the lower you go, BKB is not so common, but it's still a good item, or it's still a good ult, just to like trap a lot of people, and pierce BKBs when they do eventually buy him. So I think he's doing great. Dazzle, Nether buff to him, his Q, I think helps a lot. I think this is a better pub hero than like a high level pro hero, another example, just because I think in pubs, two things are to your benefit. One, many people don't appreciate the poison touch, how it develops and can actually be like a crazy amount of damage. So they trade too long and then you can get a really good value from your Q. And then Grave, it's just a pub classic, not focusing the Dazzle, going on whoever you see first, and then you just Grave them. So I think Dazzle's also a great pub hero. If you play really at any rank, I think his laning stage got a little better, and then just naturally good. And then pubs, maybe there's not so much early grouping, but when that does happen, Dazzle's just naturally good at that stuff, right? Arcanes, maybe into the Shard, or maybe into Auras. Mech, I think, got an overall buff in the last couple patches, and then Greaves a buff this patch. So he likes that item. He likes some other items as well that are, overall decent. So I think he kind of fits. Silencer, also just strong in the laning stage lately. It did get nerfed, but like I still think it's good enough. You're just very annoying in the laning stage. You can take a point in W level 1 and just harass for free. Even in the creep waves, you don't draw aggro as long as you manually activate your W. So you just constantly harass people, you chase them away, and then you get denies in front of their face. They walk back in, you Q them, you W them. Very annoying to deal with. After that, he likes these early fights because he might steal a ton of intelligence and scale really well. His ult, you can deal with it with dispels and stuff, but the fact that it does pierce BKB is a pretty strong counter to different heroes. So not bad. Even though the ult is kind of like longer cooldown than we would like, it's lower than it used to be. So he's still good. He did get nerfed, but I think he's fine. And, in pubs, he's a classic scaling hero when they're feeding too much. So if you know what you're doing, all the better. You can get some free int. Jakiro. So, I love Jakiro. His laning stage, still good. Q, E, fine. The early levels you pick up with the kind of the new laning I described, I think are great. Your levels scale really well early in the game. Go like Q, E, Q into your W, and then I've been maxing Q actually. In the past, I would say like, oh, pick whichever one. But lately, I've just been maxing Q and just like doing some extra farming, and I think in pubs, that's probably the way to go. So, yeah, I think it's good. The damage scales really well. Again, you're like pretty free to buy whatever you want. I did try Veil a couple times. I didn't think it was amazing, so actually I kind of just went back to like building whatever I thought was good for the game. But I just come out of the laning stage, in a pretty good spot, usually just because he's a strong laner. And in pubs, you can split push and farm a bit and then actually pressure towers with your liquid fire and maybe even the shard if you're really getting a lot of gold. Then we have Omni Knight. He's a little more on the passive side. I mean, I guess Dazzle is too, but I think Dazzle's Q has more like overall potential. But I do think many people kind of, even though he's always had one of the highest win rates, I feel, they're always sleeping on his new damage with the E. I think he's like surprisingly hard to kill. And actually, you'll notice a lot of the other heroes I just said are pretty good. He actually has a dispel to deal with all of them. So not that you're always laning in the same matchup, though I have seen a couple Omni Knight 4s. I wasn't terribly impressed. I don't know if I recommend it, unless you're like in the Herald range, in which case anything goes. But like later in the game, right, if you have your Heavenly Grace and you see your teammates being, Treant Root, Dazzle slowed, silenced, all that stuff, right, the dual breaths, then you just Heavenly Grace them, you heal, which is pretty nice. The laning stage is not as bad anymore now that you have the E, I forget what it's called, the hammer, right? The pew, that slows, and then you just hit people. Now that the dispel affects you and your ally as well, in the laning stage, if you do run into like a Jakiro 4, for example, or whoever has like something dispellable, hits both of you, boom, both dispelled. So he is maybe not as aggressive to like crush his lanes as these other heroes, but he gets through his lane happy enough, I feel. And then as long as you have a couple heroes who are like fairly active, you just follow them and like buff them up, So I think these supports all have really good win rates, and I can see them all working out pretty well. There are others who I think are good, but I don't know. I just didn't put them up here. Like Undying, I still think is good, right? His laning stage is still strong. He did get nerfed a bit, but if you like Undying, I think he's still in a decent spot. So it's like Crystal Maiden, who got another nerf, Mirana. Like, I still see a lot of high-level players picking Mirana, though in, your pubs, maybe the position 5 Mirana might get some tilt, some flame. So, a little word of caution there. Enchantress, I think, is actually pretty good, but she's always just a hard hero to play. So if you don't know how to play her, I don't really recommend it. But if you are an Enchantress player, I do think she is still good. All 6 of you can still win MMR with this hero. Clockwork, I think, is fine. As we go from there, right, I think all these heroes are just, like, fine, but they're not, they don't specifically call out to me as, like, amazing heroes. The Dark Willow buff's kind of nice. I think she's maybe a better 4, though, than a 5. Witch Doctor is very interesting, where the higher up you go, he's actually, win rate drops a lot compared to, like, Herald. His ult is just really good at getting kills in Herald, where people screw up, right? So, Herald up to, like, Archon, I think Witch Doctor is actually still a pretty good hero. And then the further up you go from there, you can make it work, but he's just, like, technically a worse hero, I would say, than, like, some of these other ones. Let's actually switch. Let's go to the bad heroes. So Grimstroke, I'm still not fully impressed with. I don't know. It just doesn't look great when I, like, watch games of him. Because he hasn't even shown up in any of my games. No one wants to play him. I don't want to play him. So I had to, like, watch some replays. And I'm not fully sure what the issue is. I don't know if it's, like, numbers or something. Like, I think you can get by with him. But I think maybe part of the issue is just, like, the coordination required for Grimstroke to be good. And when he first came out, he was kind of busted. It was just really strong. So it was easy to coordinate, because even if people messed up, eventually they got it right, and you just, like, 100-0 kill someone. But I think he's now at a point where it's like, okay, we're not so broken. We actually need to get, like, the ink swell correct. We need to get, like, the double ult skills correct, right? And it's just hard. It's just hard in a pub game. So I don't know. I'm not loving it. But, maybe I'll try him out more. Like I said, it's only been a week or two. I've been playing, like, some of these other stronger heroes I thought were good first. But I will try him out a couple times, and maybe he's better than I think, and we can bump him up. Ogre, I'm not terribly impressed with. I really liked his old build of, like, higher armor and higher regen versus, like, having the damage. So I think I don't know, maybe we just need to, like, switch the way we think of Ogre, but I miss that old Ogre, and I think many people are still playing that old Ogre, and that's why I'm like, I don't think he's as strong as he used to be when you play that way. So I think he's generally worse. Lion also has a really bad win rate. Several of these heroes down here kind of do, but Lion, I actually think, could be kind of like Enchantress, where, like, if you're good with Lion, he might still be fine. His skills or just, like, using his skills along with being a squishy hero with very tight mana pool is tough on many heroes who think they can just farm ult kills, the ult being, like, 3 minutes at level 1. So I think that's, like, a bit of a trap on many people who pick Lion. But overall, his win rates aren't great. So, like, I had them down here before, but I was like, yeah, well, I'm seeing them both more than Grimstroke, so maybe it's not fair to put them in the same tier. The rest of these, I don't know if I've seen enough to, like, really have thoughts one way or the other. So for now, they're all just average to me. And, maybe later as the patch stays for a while, we'll make, like, an official tier list, and I'll let you guys know. My hair always gets all messed up, and no one's around to tell me when I record. And sometimes I do record, like, hours of content, but when it's just my hair, I'm just like, I'll just look ugly. You guys can deal with it. Soft supports. So I struggled with this one for a bit. I think it's because actually quite a lot of 4s are fine. They don't strike me one way or the other. It's not like the last patch, which it was like Marcy, Tusk, Tiny, right? Those heroes are bust. I think it's a lot more diverse now. Those heroes got nerfed. Other heroes got buffed. And no one has, like, completely dropped out, like, oh, this hero is dead, right? I still see a lot of them played, and I see them in my games, and I'm like, oh, this Marcy got nerfed, right? She's gonna be bad, and she still beats me to death. So she's worse than she used to be, but I actually think she's still, like, in an okay spot. Not the best hero in the game, but, like, she does what she does. She's unique, right? In the fact that her damage output is still there. Her leaping is worse, but, like, if you're still like, you just have to position a little better. A couple less opportunities are there for you, but the opportunities you do have are kind of good enough. So I'm actually struggling here to like pick out the best soft supports. Two that I am impressed with so far are Ricky and Rubik. However, we got some risk here. Ricky, likely to inspire a lot of tilt and flame in your team. So I don't know if I can good conscience recommend him to you all, but I did play him a couple times myself in the last stream, and I've been watching a lot of high level players give him a shot, and it's pretty fun. It's not bad, I gotta say. His laning stage, his stats are really good. So I have an old video as well on that where I talked about what makes a hero broken and allows them to go from like core to support and vice versa. And it's usually base stats, and Ricky's are really solid. So has good move speed, has decent HP regen, solid armor, solid damage. So a lot of people have just been building like tangos, a couple mangoes, and iron branches, and you just have like decent right click, good regen, and you just like, you're annoying in the lane. You can use blink strike to secure range creeps or just harass people in general. You're hard to kill because of the build you have, which is blink strike and then either tricks of the trade or your smoke screen, depending on the lane. But it's just hard to kill you, so you can kind of do annoying things. You can drag creeps if the lane matchup's really bad, because you're not as strong as like other fours, right? Who can like harass a ton and like really scare the enemy off. You're like very consistent. You like poke, you out sustain through your high regen. You're very like long-term laner. So if the lane is not, in your favor for that kind of thing, because they have like a very good matchup, you just drag creeps and you're fast. You have high regen, so you don't even take that much damage from doing it. You're not that much risk. You just drag them through, block the camps, and there you go. You've won your lane as Ricky. So it's actually not bad in the laning stage. And then from there, Sleep Dart and Aether Lens is nuts. Smokescreen also really good. So you're just like invisibly scouting people. You Sleep Dart them. And in fact, it's harder for higher level Ricky, right? There's less flame for him, but people have really good reactions. So they see Sleep Dart, instantly blink, they dodge it, all that stuff. In your games, if you get to that point, you can probably blink, like, Sleeping Dart max range, and someone won't even notice, and they'll get hit, And then it's like, it's easy setup for the rest of your team. So that's how he contributes as support. He just constantly scouts Sleep Darts and smoke screens in the right spot. And then the benefit in pubs is you have a lot of scaling potential because you are, typically a core hero. So I enjoyed him a lot. Even though I lost the games I played with him, I thought I had like pretty solid impact, and the games just didn't work out for other reasons, which, I have not played Ricky in 3 years apparently. So I don't usually recommend doing that kind of stuff. Do as I say, not as I do. But I was giving him a shot out of the blue, and it was working pretty well. So I think if I improved my Ricky gameplay a little bit, I have even more impact. But even where I was, it was pretty easy to play, I feel like. Well, I did watch a lot of games to study up on it. So, I mean, I didn't totally go blind into it, and I recommend you all also study up before doing it. But, yeah, I actually think it's solid. Just be careful, you might get flamed pretty heavily. Then Rubik. I think Rubik fits this new laning that I've been doing, at least. Stay in the lane more till at least level 2, level 3, but, even more beyond that if you think it's good for you. Rubik likes that because he gets to his ultimate, and then he gets to steal a spell really early. So he might steal spells from the enemy mid laner, whatever high-level hero is in the game, right? You have that spell now. And then it works out really well. You probably have like a double nuke in terms of like your W and whatever you stole. Maybe you have like double stuns. Maybe you have big team fight ults, right? I've seen many Rubiks pop off in my game. And he's got like a little extra buffs, lots of like extra right click and stuff to be annoying in the laning stage while he stays in the lane a little longer. The downside is Rubik is a difficult hero. So his win rate is always, usually below 50. I don't think it's because he's a bad hero. I think he's just a very tough hero. Now, you're free to disagree with me on that, but that's just my opinion. I think he's a good hero who's just difficult to play. So I feel good about these two heroes being fairly good. Earthshaker has also impressed me in the games I've seen him in. I don't even know exactly what changed for him and like why he feels better, but he's just been like solidly performing in many of the games I've seen and played. So I also think he's pretty good. Again, I'm actually not sure why, because he's not usually that amazing in the laning stage, but I think with like creep dragging and then the power of like, oh, tell you what, maybe what it is that a lot of the 5s are very strong, in my opinion. And so many of the 4s who have been like nerfed one way or the other, many of them can't directly compete with the position 5s, the like some of the better ones. So you end up doing like creep dragging, or you just try to like disrupt the lane. And I think Earthshaker's really good at that. You just like drag creeps, but then Fissure is incredible at like stopping all aggression except for a few certain matchups, right? Because you just literally block their path, and then that's it. Your offlaner's fine after that. So maybe that's it. Maybe the way Earthshaker can play, blocking creeps, dragging creeps, blocking the enemies, maybe that really disrupts what's good in the hard support role, and maybe that's why he's doing well. You just came up with a theory on the fly right there, guys. Besides that, like I said, a lot of these heroes, especially in this top row, are doing well. These aren't, either box is not organized by order necessarily, but, generally a little bit. So I think any of these like first row heroes and a couple of these guys are all still really solid. Beyond that, I still need to see more of these heroes. Again, I think Grimstroke's not that great. In the past, he used to be played as 5 and 4. I just don't think he's great in either role right now. I saw Shadow Demon as a bad win rate. He was in one game I was in, and he did pretty well. I think he's pretty good against Razor, but beyond that, nah. I don't know. I think that's another thing with position 4s to consider. Razor's really popular right now, and so I think many, it puts you in a weird spot, because I think Razor he doesn't build auras, and he doesn't initiate. And a lot of initiating soft supports don't build auras, and a lot of aura building soft supports don't initiate. So I don't know where I'm going with that. I think 4 supports prefer to initiate when they have a Razor. So I think that's why heroes like Earthshaker, Tiny, Marcy, Nyx, Tusk, Clockwork, Primal Beast, they all have felt fine because they're pairing up with the Razor. So you win your lane, and then you're kind of the initiator for Razor. But I have felt a bit of a lack of auras in some games where I've had Razor, and then it's the 4 doesn't build them, and then I'm a 5 that doesn't really build them, and then it's kind of awkward. So again, I don't know. I don't certainly know where I'm going with that, but I guess that's just another little tidbit of what I've experienced. There you go. I think that's it. Okay, yeah, I'm going to keep it at that because, like I said, I've only, it's been a week and a half or so. I've only played so many games and watched so many, so I'm not going to, sit here and detail talk about every hero that I haven't even seen or played yet. So let me know if you agree or disagree with anything we talked about. I think we covered a lot of, what I think is stronger, and I think that's all, most people tend to care about anyways. But let me know if there's someone I haven't tried or haven't seen yet that you think is doing well. I would love to know. End of the year holidays are coming up, right? We got more time for Dota, so I will try them out if I can. And, maybe, I don't know, a couple weeks from now, maybe we will make a tier list or something as the patch settles, unless, another patch comes out or something. Because Razor kind of needs to be nerfed. Razor Bloodstone, right? What the heck is up with that? So, maybe we'll end up having to do something like this again. But I would like the patch to settle a bit more. I'd like to play more games. I don't want to be the blind leading the blind. So when that happens, maybe we will do a bit more of a definitive, opinionated tier list. But until then, hope this helps. Let me know what you think. I will see you in the next video. Bye.